talking. I wanna ask all my gangsta niggas a real question. Holla back. What do you do when niggas spit at you?
Clap back, we gon' clap back, we gon' clap back, we gon' clap back.
Let's take them to war, niggas.
We gon' clap back, we gon' clap back, we gon' clap back.
Let's take them to war, niggas.
We gon' clap back, we gon' clap back, we gon' clap back.
Let's take them to war, niggas.
We gon' clap back, we gon' clap back, we gon' clap back.
Fuck they hollering about rule, nigga. Here's the real. I pop your top like champagne bottles to chill or nothing but ice.
Get self-responsibility back. We've lost a lot of that. You know, but I think everyone should be issued a place to live as soon as they're born. If you're born in a country, you should have somewhere to live. It should be part of the school curriculum, putting a permaculture garden in this place while you're at school, so by the time you finish school, you've got a house built and you've got a permaculture garden to feed yourself with. Everybody should have this. This is a basic right of life, you know, so something like that would be great, which would instill self-responsibility into people. You could go and work and do stuff if you wanted, but if you don't, then you can still live here and study the art of your life, become a philosopher, become somebody who is powerful in philosophical and spiritual and healing ways and mental ways. I mean, there's other ways of doing things. As long as you're not far too serious for children to be thinking about what you want your gender to be when you're 5 or 6 years old. I mean, this is ridiculous. Fostering dopamine addiction in these kids when they're this old as well. This is dangerous. Not just ridiculous, but downright dangerous. It's destroying their minds. And this is why this needs to be addressed. And the kids aren't going to do it. They're just getting led into it. That's why it's incredibly important for parents to wake up to what's going on, to start paying attention to what's happening with their kids' lives. You know, and I think about it, you know, when I was a child, when I had my big awakening, when I was 4 years old, and I realized that this was a crazy world that I'd been born into. I'd been born into a madhouse. I can only imagine what it's like for the kids now, because there's a huge awareness in children, and it seems to be progressing, you know, whether you want to believe in indigo children or whether you want to believe in any of this sort of new age stuff or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But there seems to be a real intelligence in the kids that are coming into reality now. And these kids are automatically being drugged and categorized as having problems and autism and ADHD and all sorts of stuff. I mean, ADHD kids, I would imagine many of them just look at the world and say, hey, this is a complete mess. What on earth are all you people doing? And so they drug them and say they've got a problem and they need help and they need adjustment to society and all this sort of stuff. I mean, they tried to do this with me. They tried to categorize me as having all sorts of things. They ended up saying I've got Asperger's syndrome because I don't read social cues well or whatever. I mean, they had to try to label me with something because I just didn't fit in with their society, because I'd question everything they told me to do. I'd ask why I had to do any of this stuff. I'd just point out to them that it was all ridiculous. And so they had to categorize me and tell me I had some sort of disability or affliction. Really, I could just think clearly. And they didn't seem to be able to do that. And that was my affliction. And I would suggest that's what a lot of these young kids that are being categorized as having these autistic problems and ADHD and all of these sorts of things, these kids are just kids that can see clearly. They've got active minds and they can see the farce that this social system is. And so they have to categorize them as something, because it's the only way of making them fit in. And so their parents have drugged them and their minds are blocked and clouded, and they become less of a worry for society, less of a worry for the powers that be. And all of the people in society will just categorize them and say, oh, that's that young kid. He's got a problem. Don't worry about him, you know. And we need to really pay attention, and we need to put down our tools and stop supporting this system. And we need to stop believing that anybody who's speaking out is our enemy, and we need to stop thinking that any politician is going to lead us to safety, because they're not. You know, we are so far from what we should be. This reality is so different to what it should be. Everything that we think is true is wrong. Our history is completely fake. Everything that we are is something different. And there is no remedy to be found in government. The whole world needs to stop what they're doing, stop working, turn and face this system and say, hey, we've had enough. And we need to deal with this spraying in the skies and stop shutting down doctors and people who are attempting to expose it, because they are spraying you like bugs. Your government is killing you, and all you are doing is hacking down the people around you who are trying to expose it as well. And it's disgusting. And I'm not talking to the regular listeners of the show. I'm not talking to the people that support the Crow House. I'm not talking to the people who know what I'm talking about. I'm talking to the ones that are hacking these people down. You know who you are. So yeah.
You see something, come up with associations immediately. I mean, not in the sense that intuitive perceivers are necessarily always quick about their intuition. Intuitive perceivers can weigh and balance and keep judging their different options in their head, but I mean, because this depends on if you're introverted or extroverted as well. I mean, in the sense that intuitive perceivers are able to improvise a situation. I know that I think intuitive perceivers need some kind of structure, some kind of framework of ideas often to be creative around. They need something to activate their creativity. And usually there always is something to activate your creativity. But there is situations where intuitive perceivers struggle. And intuitive perceivers struggle the most in situations where they are stuck. The worst thing I think for an intuitive perceiver is that experience of being stuck. I read a lot of literature with ENFP main characters or INFP main characters, and I think that thought of being in chains, that thought of being imprisoned, the thought of being able to not think of any options, that's a horrible situation for an intuitive perceiving type. I think that intuitive perceivers need to be able to think of options to calm their nerves, to relax themselves, and because they find it fun. They find it interesting, stimulating, energizing. Without it, they lose their energy, they lose their spirit, they lose their creativity. And it's not that an intuitive perceiver needs to act on all options that they see. Obviously, an intuitive perceiver can think of many options, but they might not always want all of these options. Just the thought of being able to think of them is important to an intuitive perceiving type. If you take away that ability to think of options, if you limit or constrain too much, you are wasting the intelligence of these types. You are wasting the creative intelligence and all the range of abilities and strengths this can give your group or your organization or wherever you happen to be right now. You have to find ways to make sure that these types can run free, and you have to make sure that you try not to hold on to them. The worst thing you can do is try to hold on to an intuitive perceiving type. Intuitive perceiving types need that creative juggle room where they can adjust the situation somewhat. The more you try to constrain or limit their work or give them rules or boundaries, the more you can somewhat trigger their need to rebel, their desire to rebel. You need to give breathing room in a sense that, because if an intuitive perceiver feels like they are starting to become limited or like they are starting to feel choked, that's when they get this instinct, this desire to rebel or to do something crazy. I find that intuitive perceivers have another ability which they can use in these situations, in the situations where they feel limited, and that is the chaos generator. Intuitive perceivers have this big chaos generator inside their head, in that they know exactly how to fuck up the situation if things aren't going their way. If something is starting to go wrong, or if things are starting to go out of their control, intuitive perceivers, what they do best is they take all the cards and they throw them up in the air, causing mass chaos, and in the result also creativity. I think intuitive perceivers find fascinating and thrilling even the idea or thought of being able to cause this chaos, because in chaos there is creative potential. But an intuitive perceiver will only do this in a situation where they feel like their creativity has run out, that they've been stuck, or that they have no other option. In aim for this, they are seriously being undervalued for what they contribute to the world. And workplaces and schools need to take into account this process. First, we often expect of our employers to give us, of our employees, to give us immediate results, to perform at maximum efficiency as soon as the work happens, and to always look busy and to always look like they have got something going on. But the INTP is the direct opposite of this. The INTP is the person that seems to do the least but does the most. Seems to do the least but does the most, in the sense that they might look like nothing is happening, but a lot is happening inside their own heads. A lot of thought is going on, a lot of reasoning is going on, and a lot of amazing things are happening. And INTPs are, in many ways, judged for not being able to explain what is happening, not being able to go through this process with other people, to share it with other people as it is happening. And this is a problem for all intuitive introverts, being able to share and describe your process as is it going on. It's hard for you to demonstrate immediate value and quick value from what you do. You might need more time to actually deliver. You might need a year to actually come up with a good solution. Of course, it's the turtle versus the rabbit all over. The rabbit might start off quicker, but the turtle is sitting there by the start line developing rocket shoes so that they can finish the race before the rabbit. And then if we are all working in terms of short-term projects, if our workplace says, okay, you have 1 week to do it, and then 1 week to do the next one, and then 1 week to do the next project, there is going to be low chances for an INTP to be in there, to be in the game, to be in the race. The lucky thing INTPs do have going for them is that they are perceiver types, and as a perceiver you are better with immediate adaptation. So if there is the case that if you need to be flexible to what's going on, INTPs are usually present types. They are more focused on short-term optimization and long-term planning. It's generally that you don't go to the INTP looking for a strategy for a long-term game, but you go to an INTP when you have a strategy and when you know what you want, and when you need someone to look at this strategy and to see the flaws, to see how it will work and how it can be used in the moment. INTPs are in many ways described as brilliant but lazy, but when you look at laziness, you have to realize your perception of lazy is also biased. It's time that we get rid of the idea that you have to be active to look busy, to be busy. Through this, you can look busy, but you don't have to be busy because you look busy. You can seem like you have a lot going on. You can have 10 tabs up on the internet. You can have so many lists doing. You can talk about how good you are at multitasking. But a lot of the time, multitasking isn't that good. A lot of the time, people who multitask are performing worse at each individual task. People who seem more busy don't always produce more. People who seem to always have structure don't always produce a lot of results, even if they have strong goals and even if they show high ambitions. INTPs are not going to pretend to have bigger ambitions than others, and INTPs are not going to exaggerate how much they are going to be able to do. INTPs are not going to set unrealistic goals for how much they attempt to achieve in the future. INTPs won't blind you with these big numbers of what they will complete in 1 year, because INTPs don't really know the end results of what they are doing. And with creativity, the route there is always a little irregular. The route to insight often takes a long walk down a lot of corridors inside your own mind. As an INTP type, you have to go and dig deeply into yourself, and a lot of the time you can feel like you're not doing anything. You can feel like you should be doing more and that you should be thinking faster, but you can't rush this process. You can't rush being a philosopher. Socrates didn't whip himself telling him to think faster, to come up with smarter solutions. It's not how it works. It's the case of long-term, slow and steady reasoning, and often it will look like nothing is happening, but a lot is happening, and your mind is rolling and spinning, and you can feel that. You can feel how hot your brain gets sometimes when you are really thinking about something, even if it seems like